what I think about them, and what I'm planning to do. I would start with a very brief biography of myself. My family had a farm across the river in the summertime when I was a very small child. It was bought during the Depression, and they lived there during the Depression and the war years. And when I was about 4 years old, I went out one day and I gathered sticks and little stones and moss and leaves and whatnot. And I built a little house on the patio that my mother had made by the side of the house. And she asked me what I was doing out there. And I said, well, I'm building a caterpillar castle. And I discovered the woolly bear caterpillar. I thought that was a wonderful thing. And I went and collected them, and I put them in my castle. And I can still remember how hugely disappointed I was when I went out the next morning to see how they were doing. And of course, they had gone away. They had left. I couldn't understand that. How could they do that to me? It was probably the very first example of how everybody out there, the wing-heads and the four-leggeds and so forth, can humble you in a second. When I was growing up, we had a family dog or two. We had a dog for a while that belonged to my sister. I firmly believe in the idea of our dogs in many ways as spirit guides. And this dog was adopted from a shelter. He was too old to be a cute puppy. He was too ugly to be handsome, whatever happened. And he had mange. And she looked at him and said to herself, nobody is ever going to adopt this puppy. They're going to gas him. I guess we have to take him home. So she did. And then she named him Pico della Mirandola. If you are really up on your Italian history, which I was not, I had to Google Pico, actually, recently. He was a 15th century Italian philosopher, and he wrote a treatise on the divinity of human beings. So this dog was not exactly appropriately named, but he became a constant companion for quite a while. While I was growing up, he pulled me on my bicycle, I taught him to pull my sled. We went everywhere together. He slept in my bed, and then of course my sister came back and took him away. So that was another sad time. My next type of animal was a basset hound. And people, when they're discussing the San Donoma Harehounds, tend to forget that a significant portion of them are basset hounds. They are very different from beagles. And watching the intermingling of these things, not in a generic way, but just in the way they think and hunt and relate to me, is one of the joys of my life. Anyway, half of these are basset hounds. I raised a litter of puppies for the Tewksbury Foot Bassets, and I kept one. And it turned out to be a brilliant and idiosyncratic and ultimately treacherous dog by the time he was old. This gives us a little bit of a perspective on what happens with aging. He was brilliant. He was asked by Oakley Thorne to come and hunt with the beagles to help them because he was better than they were. And we all appreciated that. But then he got to be 8 years old and he discovered he was slower than they were, and he resorted to deceit and subterfuge and all kinds of, he would slip off and run a deer, which he knew he wasn't supposed to do, but he would wait until he got as far away from us as Liz Baldwin is before he said anything. So nobody ever knew. We had to tell him in the end that when we put on our green coats and he knew we were going bigling, he was not allowed to come. It was a very sad day, but it's a perspective on life as we know it. We moved to Millbrook in 1964, and I've had many, many kinds of hounds since living here. I've hunted the foxhounds for 27 years, and one of the lessons that they have taught me as a group is that they know whatever we think we know about them. They know everything about each other. They know who is the top dog. They have a pecking order. They know who is reliable. They know whose nose is the best. They know who is slow and who is fast in the course of a day's hunting. And remember, these hounds are following a smell that we're not even aware of in most cases. Very light, and especially in the case of hares and rabbits, a very light scent. They are following this. They know, I've learned from watching my hounds, when a hound opens, in other words, speaks, if they go flying off immediately, that is a reliable hound. The same thing exists in our society, of course, we hope. Sometimes they just totally ignore whatever noises are coming from their friends. They pay no attention to puppies. They have already assumed that puppies are a work in progress, and you just don't pay too much attention to them. They're most likely to be doing the wrong thing. They know who is inclined to just babble, go on and on and on. They ignore those. Sometimes they'll stop and listen, cock their heads. And then they either say, ugh, or they go flying. And there's just something in this language we don't understand. They know everything about each other. And of course, the scary thing is, and it's something that I have strived for over time with my hounds. Any of you who have beagles, if you can imagine taking, 19 of them and throwing them into a cornfield and having them run rabbits in the corn, and then actually having the expectation that in 45 minutes when you blow the horn and call them, that they will come. It's interesting because this is not in the beagle's psyche. But on the other hand, pack beagles have been bred to be more cooperative, less pig-headed, and in the hunting world there are many, many kinds of beagles, but I've gotten, finally, after all this time, we've kind of gotten them through the passion for deer. That was bad. And then they had a passion for coyotes. That was even worse. Coyotes go further than deer. Imagine something that weighs 23 pounds and is probably 14 inches tall, thinking that it's really a good idea to chase a coyote 15 miles to Cornwall Bridge, which one of my hounds did. This is obviously their ideas of themselves are not our ideas of them. Bassets, on the other hand, are more pragmatic. They're easier to teach. They have more respect for what I think of them. The beagles, Okay. Now the bassets care. They care a little bit more about my opinions of them. Part of the reason I'm here is that during the course of just being in this beautiful countryside for all these years, I've seen so many things that are liberating or intimidating or inexplicable sometimes. I've seen reactions from the animals that we hunt every once in a while, quite frequently actually. The foxhounds would push a coyote out of the cover and would come out in front of me and maybe the field, and the coyote would stop and would look me in the eye, and then it would turn around and it would look behind, and you could see this bubble over its head. It's the doghounds today. I guess I don't have to worry too much. But then he might say, "Uh-oh, it's the bitches. I'm out of here." There was a difference, in which pack it was, and the bitches were so good I finally had to stop hunting them separately. I had to give the doghounds a chance and mix them all together. This is not a sexist opinion. It's just what happened. When the bitches went out there, they really wanted to catch something. The doghounds were more interested in just smelling something. So the mixture of these two things. And as far as the coyotes are concerned, I'm really grateful, and I think we all should be, to live in a country where the coyotes are actually hunted with hounds, because it gives the coyotes perspective on us and our dogs. I don't think they're quite so likely to come and pick off our treasured pets as they would be otherwise. I can remember when I was hunting the hounds, a woman who had a big property in the hunting country came to me and she said she had a West Highland Terrier. And she said she looked out of her window one morning and there was the West Highland Terrier having a conversation with a coyote, nose to nose. And she said, "Should I be worried about this?" And I said, "Absolutely. You don't know whether that coyote was considering the terrier as a friend, or whether maybe it was going to be lunch, or maybe it was going to take him home to meet his family. This is not a good thing. I'm grateful that we still have foxhounds in the country. My concern, and part of my actually reason for speaking like this, is that as we have come through the stages of our civilization, we are gradually getting further and further away from the actual real appreciation of what is around us. And we find this with beagles. We have many subscribers, many supporters, many enthusiastic followers, but they don't come hunting very much. it interferes with lots of things that are now more important. So our support is, our financial support, our spiritual support is unflagging, but the actual physical presence of our members is down a bit. And I think this is too bad, because no matter how many times I write up our hunting reports and send them out, it's nothing like actually being out there and seeing what happens. Watching a rabbit come down a path, duck into the bushes, watching the hounds come down the path, duck into the bushes, experiencing a check, which is a little bother, they've lost the scent, and seeing the rabbit come back out of the bushes where the hounds are and come back down the path to where you are and stand and look at you and then duck in this way, this absolutely baffles the hounds. They have no clue what has happened, and it's an extraordinary one. They can work this out. This is how a prey animal like a rabbit copes with the fact that it's a tasty morsel for a lot of people, and if it doesn't employ all of its skills, it will be breakfast, lunch, or dinner for someone, a coyote, a hawk, a fox, us, anything. After we moved here, and I became so involved with the hounds, in the fullness of time, I went to work for the Millbrook Hunt. And a little further down the line, my daughter Eleanor became very good friends with Catherine Bonacue, who was somewhere in age between my daughter and myself. Quite a lot younger than I, but a little older than Eleanor. Catherine came and rode with us, and she rode my horses. And after a bit, through a process that was much too complicated to explain, she began to host a Native American shaman, a grandfather called Wallace Black Elk. He came here and stayed with Catherine and her friend Dennis. And they had ceremonies at Catherine's place. She lived over in Troutbeck. And grandfather taught us a great deal about quite mysterious things. And when he was here, weird things happened. I won't go into those either, but it was quite an opening up of a spiritual area that I was more or less unaware of. And one of the things that he told us to do was to go out at sunset or at sunrise and pray to the four directions, the black and the west, the red, the yellow, and the white. It's the four nations. It's for us and all nations. And just to say a prayer, the thunder beings in the west, we've had a lot of those this year. And eventually, grandfather grew too old to come here. And Catherine developed a cancer. And she decided, over a period of time, that she would not be treated in a conventional way. We did healing ceremonies for her. She was given 6 months. She lived about 2 years. But on the night that she passed, her friend Dennis called me. It was about 2 in the morning. And I said, Dennis, I'll come and sit with you just for a few minutes. And I went and got in my little red truck in the parking lot of my house and started down the driveway. My husband has a wood pile on the left of the driveway. And on the wood pile, there was a very big owl. And that owl launched itself and just floated down the driveway in front of me, over the hood of the truck, until we got to the end of the driveway, at which point it rose up. So I said, thank you, because I think it came to tell me that Catherine was gone. We went and sat together, and several weeks later, at this very place, I had, with my daughter, I had a profound experience, which has really, there have been many others, but this was particularly moving. We were both working at the hunt at the time, and we were fairly scruffy, not maybe a little worse than I am now, maybe a little better, I don't know. We made ourselves presentable, and we came over to the church and parked way down the road, and of course the church was overflowing, and we just looked at each other and decided to stand on the gravel in front of the church during the ceremony. And the bell began to ring for the service, and I looked up a lot, because there's always something up there. Somebody's up there watching us. I looked up, and there was a red tail, a big red-tailed hawk, circling over the steeple. And she stayed there. And we watched. And the service began. And she flew away. And after a while, I thought, I wonder where she went. So we turned around and we looked. And my daughter has better eyes than I have. She could see her way off to the west. And this bird was circling. Little clockwise circles. Way to the west. And from there, as the service went on, she went to the north by the foxhound kennels. She went to the east by the tamarack. She went to the south over Tower Hill. And when the service was over, she came back and she sat in this tree over our heads. And so Eleanor and I had a conversation. Well, was that Catherine? No, probably not. But that was a messenger from a world that we don't understand. And I've had other experiences like that. But this, in this place, was particularly moving, and I appreciated it more than I could possibly say. And as I said at the beginning, what I worry about now is that we can do everything electronically. We can Google everything. We can find out everything in a second. But what do we see and observe for ourselves? I have, in the last couple of weeks, we had a garden spider at the kennels who became quite famous on our little blog that we sent out. And I went in one day and her web was a mess and she'd fixed it mostly, but she's just working on the last bits. I thought she was doing push-ups when I came into the kennel and watched her. She was, in fact, extruding silk from her abdomen and putting these little rays out, perfectly spaced, toward the center of her web. And I know that happens. I'd never seen it before. It was awe-inspiring. And of course then, shortly, poof, she disappeared. We're all going to disappear too. But I hope, before that happens, that all of us try to get a better understanding of these critters that are around us. Leave a little bit of goldenrod, even though it looks messy. Leave a little brush, leave a little cover for the little people. And remember that we are walking this earth with the four-leggeds and the wingeds and the fish people and even the creeper crawlers and even the eight-legged guys like the spiders. So thank you very much.